Imagine this. A groundbreaking new drug is finally ready. It's poised to change countless lives.
Right?
But then it hits a wall, a maze of regulatory hurdles, soaring development costs, and fierce, relentless competition.
Yeah.
For the pharmaceutical companies behind these innovations, this isn't some hypothetical nightmare. It's the daily reality of 2025.
It really is. It's a high-stakes environment where the success or failure of a new therapy, and sometimes even the whole company, hinges on navigating these incredibly complex forces. It goes way beyond just the science.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Mm,
Our deep dive is into two critical yet often intertwined strategies shaping the pharmaceutical industry's future:
that's right.
the crucial discipline of alliance management and the ever-looming patent cliff.
Yeah, these aren't just abstract business terms. They're massive forces that, ultimately decide whether innovative new treatments actually reach patients.
And how pharmaceutical companies survive and thrive in this dynamic landscape.
Exactly. And to help us cut through the complexity, we've pulled together insights from leading publications, places like the European Scientific Journal, the Rhythm of Business, Drug Patent Watch, VIS7.
And even a detailed case study on Eli Lilly's pioneering approach to collaboration.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So our mission today is really to highlight the most surprising facts and help you understand how these seemingly separate areas, collaboration and competition, are actually, well, two sides of the same coin when it comes to innovation and managing risk in biopharma.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start with alliance management.
Hmm.
So for someone who follows the industry, but maybe isn't, deep in the weeds on partnerships, how would you define alliance management?
Well, at its core, alliance management is really a systematic approach. Think of it as a set of policies, processes, behaviors, and tools.
Okay.
And they're all specifically designed to minimize risks and, crucially, maximize the value you get from strategic partnerships in the biopharma world. It's about making sure these collaborations actually deliver.
And why is this discipline so essential in pharma specifically? Is it more so than in other industries?
Well, it's incredibly important because almost all biopharmaceutical companies engage in partnerships. It's how they operate.
Right.
They do this to get access to assets, maybe specialized expertise they don't have, crucial capital, and other resources they might lack internally.
Okay.
And these partnerships aren't just about sharing stuff. They're about developing what experts call dynamic capabilities.
Dynamic capabilities.
Right.
What does that mean in practice?
Think of it like this. A company might be great at, say, drug discovery, but maybe they partner with another company that excels at large-scale manufacturing.
Got it.
Together, they develop the dynamic capability to rapidly bring a new drug from the lab to the market, something neither could do as efficiently on their own.
Ah, so it's about synergy, creating a new ability.
Exactly. And in rapidly changing environments like pharma, these capabilities become a huge source of competitive advantage.
That makes a lot of sense. So, given how critical these alliances are, what do the studies tell us about success rates? Do they usually work out?
It's actually quite striking. Studies have shown that fewer than 50% of alliances actually achieve their objectives if they aren't managed properly.
Fewer than half. Wow.
Yeah, it's a stunning failure rate, really. And it just underscores how vital this discipline of alliance management truly is. You can't just sign a deal and hope for the best.
I see. That's a significant figure. So who exactly handles this dedicated attention? It sounds like it needs to be more than just a regular project coordinator.
Oh, absolutely. It goes way beyond that. The alliance manager is a unique role.
Okay.
You could think of them as the orchestrator or maybe the choreographer of the collaborative work.
I like that analogy.
They bridge the partnering organizations and unite what are often, independent internal functions within each company.
So bridging internal and external.
Yes. Their goal is to make sure activities are coordinated, communication flows smoothly, decisions get made efficiently, and resources are leveraged effectively to achieve the alliance's goals. Not just the project goals, but the alliance goals.
That sounds like a really tough job, especially if they're pushing back against internal silos or, the way we've always done things.
It definitely can be.
What kind of skills do they need to pull that off?
They need a real blend of strategic and operational abilities.
Right.
And crucially, very high emotional intelligence.
EQ.
Yes. Strong problem-solving skills and the ability to act almost like an embassy-level diplomat.
Embassy-level diplomat. I like that.
Yeah, because their role often involves bringing together executives who might be, let's say, egotistical, political, or turf protecting, and getting them to agree on a common path for mutual value. It's not easy.
I can imagine. So what are the foundational responsibilities of this diplomat throughout the life of an alliance? What do they actually do day to day?
Well, their responsibilities really span the entire alliance life cycle.
Okay.
It starts even before the deal is signed, with pre-deal assessment. They're identifying potential risks and issues early on.
Proactive.
Very. Then they facilitate the alliance startup. That means planning kickoff meetings, maybe team building exercises, really establishing a shared vision and operating principles from day one.
Setting the foundation.
Exactly. And for ongoing alliances, they manage the governance structure, they monitor the health of the alliance, constantly taking its pulse, and they step in to resolve conflicts.
Conflict resolution must be huge.
It is. They even promote necessary changes like modifying the agreement or sometimes terminating the alliance if it's not healthy or productive anymore. That's based on that health assessment.
And it sounds like a significant part of that role is actually internal facing. Is that right? Are they spending a lot of time working within their own company?
That's absolutely correct. Alliance managers often spend a huge chunk of their time, maybe 60%, 70%, working with their internal stakeholders to gain alignment.
Interesting. Why so much internal focus?
Because their crucial role is building trust and fostering what's called an entity mindset.
Entity mindset.
Yeah, getting both partners to truly think and act as one team, even though they represent different companies with potentially different cultures and priorities, that requires a lot of internal diplomacy and consensus building.
Okay, that makes sense. So who are the early adopters of this approach? Are there any companies that really stand out as pioneers in alliance management?
Yes, Eli Lilly and Company. They formalized one of the very first dedicated alliance management programs in biopharma way back in 1999.
1999, that's quite early.
It was. They recognized early on that strategic partnerships were going to be key to success in the evolving global market. It allowed them to share costs, gain knowledge. They established their Office of Alliance Management, the OAM, with a really clear mission statement. We don't make alliances, we make them better.
I like that focus, not just deal making, but making them work.
Exactly. It wasn't just about striking deals, but ensuring those deals actually thrive long term.
And they developed some specific tools and frameworks to support this, didn't they? I remember reading about them.
They did. One key tool was the Lilly Alliance Management Process, or LMMP. It synthesized best practices.
LMMP.
And a really critical component of LAMP was their three-dimensional fit analysis.
3 dimensions. What were they?
It assesses cultural fit, operational fit, and strategic fit between potential partners.
So beyond just the operational nuts and bolts.
Absolutely. Ensuring true alignment before a deal even begins. They also use something called the Voice of the Alliance, or VOA.
VOA, what was that?
It was a web-based survey they administered annually to assess alliance health across 14 crucial dimensions, things like communication, trust, commitment, conflict resolution.
So quantitative data on the relationship health.
Precisely. It provided a tangible picture of how the alliance was performing and, importantly, where improvements were needed.
Let's bring this to life with some concrete examples. You mentioned the case study. How did alliance managers make a difference at Lilly, say, the Lilly Alpha Research Alliance?
Right. In that case, an alliance manager named Scott Fishman joined the team when it was facing a major hurdle after a drug candidate failed.
Tough situation.
Very. He was instrumental in resolving a funding dispute that cropped up and also reevaluating the workflow. People saw Fishman as a neutral voice of reason.
The diplomat again.
Exactly. He helped the alliance team find a solution everyone could agree on and really enhance what they called non-contractual governance.
Non-contractual governance. What does that mean, basically?
It essentially means building strong informal relationships, mutual trust, and a shared understanding that goes beyond just the legal contract.
The human element.
Yes. It's about how people actually work together day to day, not just what the paper says.
Got it. What about the Lilly Beta Marketing Alliance? That sounded like a real success story.
It was a huge success. For that co-promotion agreement, the alliance manager, Michael Ransom, played a critical role right from the start in operationalizing the partnership.
How so?
Well, he provided crucial continuity and historical context, especially when there were leadership changes, which happens all the time.
Right.
He helped bridge the gap between Beta's perhaps longer-term investment goals and Lilly's focus on immediate revenue. That kind of alignment is key.
And the result?
The alliance ultimately led to the drug reaching nearly $2 billion in annual sales, far exceeding initial expectations. And it even expanded globally to over 70 countries.
Wow, $2 billion. That's impressive.
Definitely a success.
And even in manufacturing, you mentioned Lilly Gamma.
Yeah.
How did alliance management play out there?
Yes, with Gamma, which was a manufacturing alliance for drug delivery systems, the alliance manager, Dave Haas, served as that central point of contact.
Okay.
Now, there were some perceived rigidities in Lilly's system, but Haas really championed Gamma's perspective within Lilly. He fostered an environment of openness so issues could be discussed and resolved quickly.
So representing the partner internally?
Yes, ensuring broad goals and metrics were agreed upon, acting as a catalyst to address challenges for the relationship, making sure the partner felt heard.
So if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, what does this all mean for companies today? What's the takeaway on alliance management?
Well, I think the takeaway is that alliance management isn't just some nice-to-have support function. It's really a strategic imperative.
Right.
It's about leveraging external capabilities, sharing significant risks in a very dynamic environment, and moving beyond just transactional deals to deeply collaborative, trust-based relationships.
And for the alliance manager themselves.
It's a demanding role. It requires diplomacy, foresight, strategic thinking, and just relentless relationship building, both internally and externally.
Okay, that's a great overview of the collaboration side. Now let's switch gears. Moving from collaboration to competition, let's tackle the other major force shaping biopharma, the patent cliff.
Ah, yes, the cliff.
You called it the patent cliff. Why such a dramatic term? It sounds pretty ominous.
Well, it truly is dramatic for the companies involved. The patent cliff refers to the predictable yet profoundly disruptive expiration of drug patents.
Okay.
It's that moment when a high-margin, market-exclusive blockbuster drug suddenly faces generic competition, essentially becoming a commodity.
And the revenue impact.
It's like watching a huge portion of a company's revenue simply fall off a cliff edge, hence the term.
And the scale of this phenomenon is just staggering. What kind of numbers are we talking about globally?
The numbers are huge. Between 2023 and 2030, the estimates are somewhere between $200 billion and $300 billion in annual branded drug sales are at risk globally.
Billion with a B.
With a B, we're talking about roughly 190 drugs, including around 69 blockbusters, losing their market exclusivity in that window.
And for an individual drug.
For the innovator companies, this can mean an 80%, even 90% revenue erosion within the first year of generic entry.
80 to 90% in 1 year. That's an enormous financial hit.
It's massive. It forces major strategic shifts.
That sounds incredibly disruptive. But you also mentioned earlier there's a paradox here, that it's not entirely negative for the whole system.
Yes, that's the really interesting part. While it's a huge threat to the innovators, the patent cliff is also the primary mechanism for cost control in healthcare systems worldwide.
Bringing prices down.
Exactly. It increases patient access to more affordable medicines, and paradoxically, it fuels the next cycle of innovation.
How so?
Because companies are compelled to reinvest those blockbuster earnings aggressively into R&D to find the next breakthrough therapy, the one that will replace the revenues they're about to lose. It drives the innovation engine.
Okay, so let's clear up a common misconception. People often hear a patent lasts 20 years. But that's not really the effective patent life for drugs, is it?
No, that 20-year figure is quite misleading from a commercial standpoint.
Why is that?
Because the 20-year clock starts ticking from the patent filing date, which is very early in the drug development process.
Right, long before it's approved.
Exactly. After you factor in preclinical studies, years of clinical trials, and then the lengthy regulatory reviews. The actual effective patent life, the time a drug is on the market with patent protection and no generic competition, is often only 7 to 12 years.
So much shorter in reality.
Much shorter. That long development cycle significantly eats into the valuable market exclusivity period.
And then there are these other things, regulatory exclusivities from the FDA. How do those fit in? Are they separate from patents?
Yes, they're completely distinct from patents, which are granted by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Regulatory exclusivities are exclusive marketing rights granted by the FDA upon a drug's approval.
Okay, so a different source of protection.
Right. They can run at the same time as patents, or sometimes sequentially, offering additional layers of protection. For instance, new chemical entities, NCEs, get 5 years of market exclusivity.
5 years.
Orphan drugs for rare diseases receive 7 years, and manufacturers can earn an extra 6 months of exclusivity across the board for conducting pediatric studies.
So they stack up sometimes.
They can. They're a powerful but separate form of market protection.
Now, the entire modern U.S. generic market was essentially architected by one piece of legislation, the Hatch-Waxman Act. What was the impact of that 1984 law? It seems pivotal.
Oh, it was absolutely pivotal, a masterclass in legislative compromise, really. It aimed to balance incentivizing innovation with promoting access to affordable generics.
How did it change things for generic?
Well, before Hatch-Waxman, generic manufacturers had to basically repeat the innovator's costly clinical trials. The act created the abbreviated New Drug Application, or ANDA, pathway.
Okay.
This allows generics to get approved by demonstrating bioequivalence, essentially showing their product works the same way in the body without repeating those massive, expensive clinical trials.
So it drastically lowered the barrier to entry.
Dramatically. Reduced the time and cost to bring generics to market significantly.
And it brought in some key provisions, things like the Orange Book. What's that?
Yes, the Orange Book is the FDA's official registry of approved drugs and the patents that cover them. It's critical.
How does it work with generics?
Generic applicants have to check the Orange Book and make a certification regarding the listed patents. One type, the paragraph 4 certification, is where the generic company asserts that a brand's patent is invalid or that their generic product won't infringe it.
Ah, so challenging the patent.
Exactly. And Hatch-Waxman incentivized these challenges. The first generic applicant to successfully file a paragraph 4 certification gets rewarded with a highly lucrative 180-day period of market exclusivity.
A 6-month head start.
Yes, during which no other generics can enter the market. It's a huge financial incentive.
But the brands can fight back.
Oh, yes. If a brand company sues the generic filer for patent infringement within 45 days of the paragraph 4th notice, it triggers an automatic 30-month stay.
30 months.
Yes, it pauses the FDA's approval of the generic for up to 30 months, or until the court case is resolved, giving the brand company time to defend its patents in court. It adds another layer of complexity and delay.
This brings up an important question, especially now with biologics being so dominant. What's the actual difference between generics and biosimilars? This seems like a critical distinction.
It's absolutely crucial, and the market dynamics are totally different. Let's break it down.
Okay.
Generics are for small molecule drugs. Think Lipitor or Plavix. These are chemically synthesized.
Simple chemistry.
Relatively simple, yes. They have an identical active ingredient to the brand drug. They're relatively inexpensive to develop, maybe $1 million to $4 million over about 2 years.
Okay, pretty quick and cheap.
Right. And this leads to rapid, deep price discounts once they hit the market, often 80, 90% or even more. Plus, pharmacists can automatically substitute a generic for the brand.
Got it. So what about biosimilars?
Biosimilars are for large molecule drugs, biologics, which are produced by living systems. Think Humira or Keytruda.
Much more complex.
Vastly more complex. Because they're made in living cells, they are highly similar but not identical to their reference biologic product. There's inherent variability.
So not exact copies.
Correct. And this complexity makes them much more expensive and time-consuming to develop. We're talking upwards of $100 million to $250 million, taking maybe 7 to 8 years.
Whoa, that's a huge difference from generics.
Massive difference. And as a result, biosimilars typically enter the market with more modest initial price discounts, usually in the range of 15–30%.
Not 80–90%.
Definitely not. And they require extensive clinical studies to prove similarity for approval, and automatic substitution at the pharmacy level is much less common than with generics. It's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, that distinction is clear.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the economics of this competition. How low can prices really go once generics or biosimilars enter?
For generics, the price erosion is dramatic and really accelerates with the number of competitors.
Okay.
With just 2 generic competitors on the market, prices can fall by more than 50% compared to the brand price.
Half price with just 2.
Yeah. And if you get 6 or more generic competitors, prices can plummet to as much as 95% below the original brand price.
95%.
It's a huge win for cost containment in healthcare. Biosimilar price erosion is generally slower and less steep, but still significant over time.
And you mentioned earlier this fascinating generic paradox, where the brand name drug's price can actually increase after generic entry. How does that work? That seems counterintuitive.
It does seem odd, but it happens because the market effectively splits in 2 once generics arrive.
Okay.
The large, price-sensitive segment most patients, insurers, switches rapidly to the low-cost generic.
Right.
The brand name manufacturer is then left targeting a much smaller segment of the market, maybe brand-loyal patients or physicians who, for whatever reason, resist switching and are less sensitive to price.
The loyalists.
Exactly. So the brand company can sometimes maximize revenue from this remaining niche by maintaining or even raising the list price of their brand name drug because that segment will still pay for it.
Interesting dynamic. So,
Yeah.
faced with this impending cliff and intense competition, how do innovator companies try to mitigate the impact? What's their playbook?
They employ a whole range of strategies, often grouped under the umbrella of lifecycle management.
Okay, life cycle management. What does that involve?
Well, one common and often controversial tactic is called evergreening.
Evergreening.
Yes, that's where companies obtain new patents on often minor modifications to the drug, things like a new formulation, a different dosage, or a new delivery system, just as the core patents on the original drug are about to expire.
Trying to extend the protection.
Essentially, yes, trying to keep the exclusivity going longer.
And you also hear about patent thickets. What are those?
That's another key defensive strategy, especially for biologics. Companies build a dense, overlapping web of dozens, sometimes hundreds, of patents around a single blockbuster drug.
Hundreds.
Oh, yes. Covering manufacturing processes, formulations, methods of use, delivery devices, everything imaginable.
Why do that?
It makes it incredibly complex, time-consuming, and expensive for generic or biosimilar competitors to challenge all those patents or design around them. It effectively delays their market entry, sometimes for years.
Like a legal minefield.
Exactly. Then there's the surprising move of launching their own competition, authorized generics.
Right, launching a generic of your own drug. Why would they do that?
It seems counterintuitive, but it's a smart defensive play. An authorized generic, or AG, is the exact same product as the brand drug, just sold under a generic label, usually through a subsidiary.
Right.
This allows the innovator company to immediately capture a significant share of the generic market the moment exclusivity ends. And crucially, it disrupts the first filer's 180-day exclusivity period for traditional generics.
Undermining that incentive.
Precisely. Launching an AG can cut that first filer's expected revenue during their exclusivity period by maybe 40–52%.
That's clever. Beyond that, they also do things like product hopping and manage their pipelines, right?
Yes. Product hopping is when a company tries to switch patients from the drug nearing patent expiry to a newer, slightly different, but still patent-protected version before the generics hit. It's often criticized.
I can see why.
But the ultimate defense, and arguably the most sustainable one long-term, is just robust pipeline management. Meaning having a strong R&D pipeline, continuously developing and launching truly innovative, next-generation breakthrough therapies that are ready to replace the revenue streams of drugs going off patent. That's the holy grail.
Okay, now let's flip the perspective. Let's look at the challengers. What's the generic and biosimilar market entry gambit? How do they get their products onto the market?
Well, for generics, it's often that intense first-to-file race to secure the valuable 180-day market exclusivity. That's a major strategic driver.
The race for the head start.
Exactly. There's also the high-stakes move known as an at-risk launch.
At-risk launch. Sounds dangerous.
It is. That's when a generic company decides to launch its product while patent litigation with the brand company is still ongoing. If they win the lawsuit, great. If they lose,
they pay damages.
Big time. Apotex's generic Plavix launch back in 2006 is a famous cautionary tale. They launched at risk, lost the patent case, and ended up having to pay $442 million in damages. High risk, high reward.
Wow. Okay. And for biosimilar challengers, it's more about navigating those patent tickets we talked about.
Yes, absolutely. They have to meticulously identify and then decide whether to challenge dozens, maybe hundreds of patents, or try to design around them, which means developing their product or process in a way that doesn't infringe the existing patents.
Sounds incredibly complex.
It is. The Biologics Price Competition and Innovation Act, which created the biosimilar pathway in the U.S., established a process for managing these patent disputes before launch. It's colloquially known as the patent dance.
Patent dance.
Yeah, it's a series of highly structured information exchanges between the biosimilar applicant and the brand company. They essentially lay out their patent arguments and counter-arguments before any formal litigation begins, trying to narrow down the disputed patents. It doesn't always prevent lawsuits, but it aims to streamline the process.
And commercially, challengers also have sophisticated tactics, like dual pricing.
That's becoming more common, especially for biosimilars. They might launch two versions of the same biosimilar product, one with a low list price to appeal to certain payers focused on transparency, and another with a high list price but offering large rebates, designed to appeal to PBMs who benefit from those rebate dollars.
Playing both sides of the pricing game.
Exactly. And we're also seeing a rise in private label partnerships where biosimilar makers partner directly with PBMs or their affiliates like CVS Caremark's Cordavis to essentially guarantee favorable formulary placement.
These strategies really highlight the decisive role of the pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, and the payers like insurance companies. They seem like the real gatekeepers here.
They absolutely are. PBMs manage the drug formularies, those tiered lists of covered medications that determine how much a patient pays out of pocket.
Right. Tier 1 is cheaper than Tier 3.
Precisely. So a drug's placement on those formularies is absolutely key to its commercial success. And PBMs also use various utilization management tools.
Like what? Things like step therapy, which requires patients to try a cheaper, often generic or preferred drug first before they can get approval for a more expensive one. Or prior authorization, where the doctor needs to get explicit approval from the PBM before prescribing certain medications. These steer prescribing patterns.
It sounds like PBMs are supposed to lower overall drug costs. But there's this specific, often controversial mechanism that can actually make it harder for cheaper drugs, especially biosimilars, to gain traction. Can you explain what's known as the rebate wall and why it's such a barrier?
Yes, the rebate wall or rebate trap is a major issue, particularly for biosimilars trying to enter the market.
How does it work?
Okay, so brand name drug companies, especially for established blockbusters, pay huge confidential rebates back to PBMs in exchange for preferred placement on their formularies.
Big discounts, basically. Yes, but the way it's structured is key. This can create what some call a perverse incentive. The PBM might make more money overall by keeping the higher list price brand drug on the formulary, because the rebate percentage is based on that high price, than they would by switching to a lower list price biosimilar, even if the biosimilar offers a lower net price after smaller rebates.
So the PBM profits more from the expensive drug due to the rebate structure.
In some cases, yes. The high rebates on the brand effectively create a wall that makes it economically unattractive for the PBM to give favorable access to the lower-priced competitor. It significantly slows down biosimilar adoption. It's a really complex economic dynamic that's getting a lot of scrutiny.
That is complex.
Yeah.
Let's look at some real-world case studies in exclusivity loss to see how this plays out. First, Lipitor, a classic small molecule, huge drug.
Right. Pfizer's Lipitor was the world's best-selling drug for years, peaking at around $12.9 billion in annual sales. Massive. Pfizer fought hard to defend it. They used PBM deals, patient copay cards, and they even launched their own authorized generic the day the patent expired in the U.S. in 2011.
Did it work?
It softened the blow initially, but despite that aggressive defense, Lipitor's sales were still cut by about 2/3 within a single year of generic entry. It's really the quintessential example of a steep patent cliff for a small molecule, a swift, dramatic decline.
Okay, steep cliff for Lipitor. Then there's Plavix, another small molecule, but you mentioned its story was different, maybe even more brutal.
Yeah, Plavix saw just a brutal, immediate price war. Because of some complex litigation outcomes, when its main patent expired in 2012, multiple generics entered the market simultaneously.
So no 180-day exclusivity for anyone.
Right. No single first filer got that lucrative head start. The result was instant, intense competition. Prices for generic clopidogrel plummeted 80–90% almost overnight.
Wow, immediate collapse.
Pretty much. It led to a very swift and severe financial impact for the brand holders, Bristol Myers, Squibb, and Sanofi. A different kind of cliff, maybe less a slope, more a sheer drop.
And for a more recent and perhaps even more complex example involving biologics and those patent thickets, let's turn to Humira. How did AbbVie approach its patent expiry, and why has this case been watched so closely?
Humira is fascinating. It was the best-selling drug in the world for a long time, peaking at over $21 billion in annual sales.
$21 billion.
Incredible numbers. AbbVie executed what many call a masterclass in patent defense. They built that massive patent thicket we discussed, over 250 patents filed around Humira.
250.
Yes, and remarkably, about 90% of those patents were filed after Humira was initially approved.
Wow. And the effect? The
effect was successfully delaying any biosimilar competition in the lucrative U.S. market for 7 years after the first biosimilar was approved, until finally hitting in 2023.
7 years of delay. And what happened when biosimilars finally launched in 2023?
Well, initial biosimilar uptake was incredibly slow. only about 2% market share by the end of 2023.
Why so slow after all that waiting?
Largely attributed to that rebate wall phenomenon. PBMs were locked into favorable deals with AbbVie for the brand name Humira.
Ah, the perverse incentive at play?
Exactly. However, things shifted significantly in 2024. A major PBM, CVS Caremark, announced it was removing brand name Humira from its main national formularies and favoring biosimilars instead.
It's a big move.
Huge move. And as a result, biosimilar market share accelerated rapidly, reaching over 20% fairly quickly. Humira has truly become the new textbook case study for how companies navigate or try to navigate a biologic patent cliff in the current PBM-dominated environment.
That really illustrates the power of the PBMs. Now, these dynamics aren't just U.S.-centric, right? How do other major global markets compare in managing these patent expiries?
No, it varies quite a bit globally. The European Union, for example, operates on a generally more predictable system. They have what's called the 8+2+1 rule for data and market exclusivity.
8+2+1.
Yeah, it provides 8 years of data exclusivity plus 2 years of market exclusivity, plus potentially 1 extra year for a new indication. So 10 to 11 years total market protection from generics or biosimilars after approval.
More defined timeline.
Yes, more predictability. And this, combined with stronger cost containment pressures from national healthcare systems in Europe, has generally led to significantly faster biosimilar uptake and steeper price erosion compared to the U.S. market historically.
Interesting. What about a market like Japan?
Japan is the world's third largest pharmaceutical market, and it has its own unique system. They have a re-examination period after drug approval that functions somewhat similarly to data exclusivity. They also have patent term extensions to compensate for regulatory delays and an unofficial patent linkage system connected to their national health insurance NHI pricing process. So again, each major region really demands a tailored strategy for both innovators and challengers.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground from building alliances to navigating the patent cliff. Pulling it all together, what really stands out to you from this deep dive?
Well, I think what stands out is that whether you're talking about crafting these incredibly complex alliances or battling the patent cliff, success in modern pharma demands just exceptional foresight, deep strategic thinking, and remarkable adaptability.
It's not just about the science anymore.
Not at all. And these aren't just abstract business challenges for executives in boardrooms. They directly impact the availability and affordability of life-saving and life-changing medicines for patients all around the world. It's a constant evolution of strategy, legal maneuvering, and commercial execution.
Yeah, these deep dives really show us how companies are constantly innovating not just their products, but their very business models and their ways of working. They're leveraging relationships through alliance management and leveraging legal and commercial frameworks to navigate this incredibly complex, high-stakes global market around patent expiry.
Absolutely. It highlights that the pharmaceutical industry is just this continuous, high-level strategic chess match. It's played out across scientific labs, legal courts, and commercial battlefields. Understanding all these intricate pieces is just paramount for anyone involved.
So, to quickly recap for everyone listening, we've explored how strategic alliances are built, nurtured, and managed for value.
Right, focusing on trust and that entity mindset.
And then we looked at the intricate, often brutal dance around patent expiry, the cliff, the strategies, the challengers, the gatekeepers, and how that determines market access and drug prices.
Both sides, collaboration and competition, are ultimately about optimizing value, managing immense risk, and somehow fostering continued innovation in this incredibly dynamic industry. It's about building value, protecting that value for a time, and then reinvesting to create the next wave.
It really is a cycle. Okay, final thought for our listeners. As we look ahead to the next major wave of patent expiries, with huge drugs like Merck's Keytruda on the horizon facing its own cliff in the coming years, consider this. How will these evolving strategies, the increasingly sophisticated alliance management techniques, and the ever more complex patent defense and challenge tactics continue to reshape not just corporate balance sheets, but the fundamental access that patients like you and me have to future medical breakthroughs?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? How does the strategic game ultimately impact patient access and affordability? It's something we'll be watching very closely.